When Disney announced Rachel Zegler as the new Snow White, it seemed like a dream come true. Fresh off her breakout role in West Side Story, Zegler was a rising star, a young actress with a powerful voice, undeniable charm, and the perfect combination of innocence and strength. For Disney, this was their golden ticket, a chance to reintroduce one of their most iconic characters to a modern audience, while proving that they could balance tradition with bold, new storytelling. But things didn't go as smoothly as they hoped. Almost immediately, whispers of doubt began circulating online. Fans questioned whether Zegler truly embodied the essence of Snow White, a character so beloved that she represents the foundation of Disney's entire legacy. It wasn't about her talent. No, this was deeper. For many, Snow White isn't just a character. She's a symbol of nostalgia, innocence, and timelessness. Was Zegler, with her fresh modernity, the right choice to carry that weight? And yet, Disney doubled down, touting Zegler as the perfect mix of old and new. A Snow White for the 21st century. The stakes were high. After all, this wasn't just another live-action remake. This was Snow White, the story that started it all. If Zegler succeeded, she'd secure her place as a Hollywood icon. If she failed, she'd not only let down the fans, but potentially risk Disney's entire live-action strategy. Then the interviews started, and that's where things began to unravel. In her very first press rounds, Rachel Zegler did something that no Disney princess before her had done. She criticized the original. What did she say that set the internet ablaze? Stay tuned, because this is where the drama truly begins. When Rachel Zegler stepped into the spotlight to discuss her role as Snow White, she didn't shy away from bold statements. But instead of leaning into the magic and nostalgia of the original 1937 classic, Zegler took a different approach, and it left fans stunned. In one of her earliest interviews, she declared that the original Snow White was outdated and didn't resonate with modern audiences. To her, this remake was an opportunity to reinvent the story for a new generation, and she didn't stop there. Zegler went on to critique Snow White as a character, calling her passive and even problematic. She's not waiting for a prince, Zegler confidently proclaimed. She's not dreaming about true love. This is a Snow White who takes charge of her destiny. While some applauded her for embracing a feminist perspective, others saw it as an unnecessary departure from what made the original so special. After all, for many, Snow White wasn't just about the romance, it was about kindness, innocence, and finding joy even in the darkest moments. The backlash was immediate. Social media exploded with fans accusing Zegler of disrespecting a cherished piece of film history. Why remake Snow White if you're going to insult the original? One tweet read. Another said, "This isn't empowerment, it's rewriting history." Even some Disney loyalists, typically eager to defend the studio, found themselves uneasy, but Zegler didn't back down. Instead, she doubled down, emphasizing that this new Snow White would reflect the values of today's audience. She believed the changes were necessary, but for many fans, her words only deepened the divide. As the controversy swirled, another question emerged. Why wasn't Disney stepping in, and what was happening behind the scenes of this $290 million gamble? Things were about to get messy. While the internet debated Rachel Zegler's remarks, the drama brewing behind the scenes was even more explosive. What began as Disney's bold reimagining of a classic quickly spiraled into chaos. Insiders have revealed that Snow White's production was anything but smooth. From multiple script rewrites to a ballooning budget that eventually soared to $290 million, it was clear that Disney's ambitious vision was fraught with problems. Initially, the studio brought in director Mark Webb, known for The Amazing Spider-Man, and paired him with writer Greta Gerwig, fresh off her success with Barbie. On paper, this duo seemed unstoppable, a perfect mix of blockbuster expertise and clever modern storytelling. But as production progressed, cracks began to show. Early drafts of the script reportedly stayed true to the original fairy tale, but as rewrites piled up, the story drifted further from its roots. What once felt like a respectful update began to feel, to some, like a completely new movie. Then came the reshoots, 3 full rounds of them, and these weren't just minor touch-ups. The entire third act of the film was overhauled, with insiders claiming that Disney executives were panicking over negative feedback from early test screenings. The reshoots delayed production, added millions to the budget, and signaled to fans that the studio might not have full confidence in its own creation. But why was Disney willing to pour so much more money into a project already surrounded by controversy? The answer was simple. They couldn't afford to fail. Snow White wasn't just a remake, it was a cornerstone of Disney's live-action empire. As the studio scrambled to salvage the film, another puzzle emerged. Why had their massive marketing campaign suddenly gone quiet? The silence only fueled more questions and suspicions. When Disney announced its live-action Snow White, they didn't hold back on the hype. The initial marketing plans were grandiose, with talk of a trailer debuting in Times Square, exclusive TV appearances, and even a special performance at the Oscars. This was supposed to be a celebration of Disney's legacy, a $290 million spectacle meant to recapture the magic of the original while appealing to a modern audience. But then, silence. The trailer, which was reportedly ready months earlier, was quietly delayed. Promotional events were mysteriously canceled one by one. Even the studio's usually aggressive social media campaigns were muted. Fans noticed, and the questions came pouring in. Why was Disney suddenly so quiet about one of its most expensive films ever? The rumors started flying. Some insiders suggested that Disney was rethinking its strategy after early audience reactions to test screenings came back mixed. The visual effects and production design were reportedly praised, but the drastic changes to the story left many feeling disconnected. For a film that needed widespread appeal to succeed, this was a red flag. Others speculated that the controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler's interviews had spooked Disney. The backlash wasn't just limited to fans. Even some media outlets began criticizing the studio for abandoning the original's timeless charm in favor of modern messaging. Was Disney pulling back to avoid further scrutiny, or was this a sign of deeper trouble? Whatever the reason, the silence only made the situation worse. Fans began to fill in the gaps with their own theories, many of which weren't flattering. And with the clock ticking toward the release date, Disney's hesitation raised an even bigger question. Was the film ready, or was it still being frantically reworked? And then came the bombshell. This wasn't just a reinterpretation of Snow White, it was a complete transformation. But how far was too far? Stay tuned. When fans finally got their first glimpse of Disney's Snow White remake, it was clear that this wasn't just a reimagining, it was a full-blown transformation. The story, the visuals, and even the character's backstory had been completely overhauled. But for many, these changes didn't feel like a refreshing update. They felt like a betrayal. One of the most talked about shifts was Snow White's name itself. Instead of tying it to her fair complexion, as in the original Grimm Brothers fairy tale and Disney's 1937 classic, this version connected her name to a traumatic experience, a blizzard she survived as a child. It was a bold move meant to modernize the story, but for fans, it was just one more way the remake distanced itself from the original. And it wasn't just the backstory. Gone were the 7 dwarfs, replaced by a diverse group of magical companions, another attempt to reflect modern values. Snow White herself was no longer dreaming of true love or waiting for her prince to save her. Instead, this Snow White was positioned as a warrior, fighting for her kingdom's future. While some praised the progressive approach, others felt it was too much of a departure, stripping the character of the innocence and kindness that made her so beloved. Even the visuals sparked debate. The original's whimsical storybook aesthetic was replaced with darker, grittier tones, creating a movie that felt more like a fantasy epic than a fairy tale. Some fans welcomed the shift, but others mourned the loss of the classic Disney charm. And as these dramatic changes divided audiences, a bigger question loomed. Could the film's departure from tradition connect with enough viewers to justify its $290 million budget? The stakes were higher than ever, and the answer lay in the hands of the fans. But their voices were anything but unified. What was the world saying about this Snow White? The internet's verdict was next, and it wasn't pretty. As soon as Disney unveiled their vision for Snow White, the internet erupted. Social media became a battleground, with fans, critics, and casual viewers all weighing in on the drastic changes to the beloved classic. The reactions weren't just divided, they were polarizing. Some fans praised the film's modern approach. They saw the reimagined Snow White as a step forward, a princess who wasn't defined by her quest for love, but by her strength and determination. Finally, a princess with agency, one supporter wrote on Twitter. Others applauded the diverse casting and the bold choices in storytelling, calling it a necessary evolution for a new generation. But for every voice of support, there seemed to be a louder chorus of outrage. Fans accused Disney of abandoning the heart of the original Snow White, trading its timeless charm for a forced, overly modernized narrative. This isn't Snow White, one viral post read. It's just another generic fantasy movie with a familiar name slapped on it. Then there were the memes. Social media users mocked everything from the movie's tone to its creative decisions. Hashtags like Not My Snow White and Disney Woke Backlash started trending, fueling the firestorm. Critics argued that the film's changes weren't about modernization, but about alienating longtime fans in favor of buzzwords and box checking. Even early test screenings echoed the divide. While some viewers praised the production design and performances, others called the film soulless and a shadow of the original. This feedback reportedly left Disney scrambling to make last-minute changes, leading to the reshoots that ballooned the budget even further. But the question remained, could the controversy generate enough interest to drive ticket sales, or would it spell disaster for the film? Disney wasn't just gambling with Snow White, it was gambling with its entire live-action strategy. And with stakes this high, the numbers didn't look promising. What did Snow White need to succeed? The financial picture wasn't pretty, and that's coming up next. When it comes to Disney, every move is calculated and every project is an investment, but the stakes for Snow White are on a different level entirely. With a staggering production budget of $290 million, one of the most expensive live-action films Disney has ever made, the pressure to deliver is astronomical. And here's the kicker. Experts estimate that the movie will need to gross at least $700 million worldwide just to break even. Think about that, not to turn a profit, just to cover its costs. That's a high bar even for Disney, especially in a post-pandemic world where theater attendance is unpredictable and streaming has changed the way audiences consume content. For comparison, recent Disney live-action remakes like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast crossed the billion-dollar mark, but those films leaned heavily on nostalgia. Snow White, with its drastic departures from the original, doesn't have that same safety net, and it's not just about the box office. Disney has poured millions into marketing, reshoots, and post-production. On top of the controversy swirling around the film, every backlash, every meme, and every mixed review threatens the delicate balance Disney needs to make this film a success. For a company already facing challenges with underperforming blockbusters and financial strain from its streaming ventures, Snow White is more than just another remake. It's a litmus test for the future of Disney's live-action division. But will audiences show up, or has the backlash already done irreparable damage? The answer will depend on whether fans can embrace this reimagined Snow White, or if the film will be seen as yet another example of Disney losing touch with its audience. And as the debate over Snow White's reinvention rages on, the real question is, where does Disney go from here? What does this mean for their legacy and their future? Let's dive into that next. The Snow White controversy is about more than just one film. It's a reflection of Disney's broader struggle to find its footing in a rapidly changing entertainment landscape. Once untouchable as the leader in family-friendly content, Disney now finds itself walking a tightrope, trying to appeal to modern audiences while preserving the magic that built its empire. And with Snow White, that balancing act has become more precarious than ever. For decades, Disney's animated classics were sacred. They weren't just movies, they were cultural touchstones. The live-action remakes were meant to honor those classics while introducing them to a new generation. But with Snow White, many fans feel that Disney has strayed too far from its roots. The sweeping changes to the story, the controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler's comments, and the studio's perceived lack of faith in the project have all left audiences asking, has Disney lost its magic? At the same time, Disney is facing intense competition from streaming giants like Netflix, Amazon, and even its own platform, Disney+. Box office numbers no longer guarantee success, and every misstep carries higher stakes. If Snow White fails, it could signal trouble for the studio's live-action strategy and force Disney to rethink how it approaches its most beloved stories. But here's the thing about Disney, it's been counted out before. From the so-called Disney Dark Ages of the 1980s to the rise of Pixar, the studio has always found a way to reinvent itself. Whether Snow White succeeds or not, one thing is certain, the conversation around it will shape the future of Disney's storytelling. So what do you think? Has Disney's boldness gone too far, or is this just the evolution of entertainment? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's biggest stories. Because with a studio as iconic as Disney, one thing's for sure, this story is far from over.